You're listening to a podcast on the Podfix Network.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Little Bits and Pieces. I am your host today, Matt Walker, and with me as always is the cast of Walrus. Please introduce yourselves.
It's me, Cowboys, Jeffrey Fella. Wait, was Christian supposed to go first?
No.
It was fine if you hadn't acknowledged it.
Just
If you
fucking
hadn't
went.
acknowledged it. Why
Let
did
me
you?
edit this once. Just once.
Why did you stop to question in the moment whether it was right?
Fuck. I'm gonna
Anyway,
make it.
yeah,
I'm gonna
Christian's
make
here
it
too.
a thing where the host says both people's names and they just say a hi.
I
In
just
the
don't
future.
understand. We were executing. We were on track. We were doing the thing, and then suddenly hard pivot. By the way, everybody, my name is Christian Torres, and then suddenly you're like, wait a second, let me. It's like if you're watching a movie and suddenly
And they don't look into the camera and go, "Are we rolling?"
Did we get that?
The amateurs don't, but I'm dedicated to my craft, and I
That's
want to
true.
make sure there's quality.
That's true.
By doing the notes during the show,
Yeah.
to really consolidate as much as possible.
Do you think Miles Davis waits until the performance is over to talk to his musicians?
Well, no, but he also knows the notes not to play, and usually the ones not to play are the wrong ones.
Is that how they do jazz? They don't know the right notes. They just know all the notes. Like I don't know what note I'm playing. I know all the ones I'm not playing.
Well, yeah, because it's about the notes you don't play, right?
Yeah,
that's what Ryan
the
Gosling
phrase.
says.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
I just watched that the other day.
Did you?
Boy, did I not know that was a musical.
You know what? It's funny is I feel like I should love that movie based
I
off of
hated it.
everything about me, but I actually haven't finished it. I started watching it. I love musicals, but I don't know why I just couldn't get through it. I couldn't.
hated
What is this, Hamilton?
La La Land.
Oh, you didn't know, Matt?
No, I didn't. I thought it was about music. I didn't know that it was a musical.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
starts
how
with
long?
the
How long
opening
did it take
number.
you to figure out? 'Cause
Oh, it started with that
starts-
fucking opening number, and we put it on, and I was like, "Oh man, this is a musical."
My memory of that is I've never seen it, but I just remember when it came out.
Why do
knew
we
it was a
keep talking about
musical.
movies we haven't seen? Fuck.
I just remember people being like, "Why was this made?" Which is how I feel about The Greatest Showman. I still don't know who that movie was for.
Hugh
It's also a
Jackman. That
musical.
movie is for Hugh
It's
Jackman.
for P.T. Barnum to go like, "That's me." Isn't it based on him?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is, but
yeah.
he's dead. He's long
Well,
dead.
And also,
he can
like,
be, he can be in
not-
hell watching it.
Not a particularly good individual. from
No,
what I
horrible
understand.
guy.
So just I don't like it's. Yeah. Anyway,
Even in the
I'm not-
movie, he doesn't do good guy stuff. He
No.
does bad guy stuff, but to a soundtrack that makes it sound like good guy stuff.
I bet he would have been a better guy if he was full time.
Sorry, I know it's in character to like dunk on that joke. That was a good joke.
Thank you.
Wait, I don't
was
get
glad you look like Ray Charles. Well, stop it! Stop looking off into the distance with your glasses on, smiling.
I
God
don't
damn it.
get it.
Oh man. Well, this has been another episode
Yeah.
of Little Bits and Pieces.
We're done.
No,
Well, no,
Matt,
I'm just
No,
like trying to
he's-
wrap. I'm just trying to wrap up the show.
And what Christian is doing
Wrapping up.
is what this episode is all about. And I read through it. Don't worry. I was gonna berate you and then go.
I'm like
but
really
Christian
off
brings up a
base
good
right
point.
now, so I don't.
Yeah. Today's episode's about ending shows. You know, the last episode was very much about starting shows and initiating scenes. This is all about ending shows. And
Unfortunately, we do not have an episode about doing the show. There is no episode on that.
scenes. Yeah. Yes. We'll figure it out eventually, but it is a industry secret
If
how to
you know how to
actually
start something and you know how to end something, you've technically done something.
I
Exactly.
feel
because all moments start.
flying the plane's the easiest part. It's the landing and the taking off that.
Yeah, well, I
Okay.
think the landing is the hardest part, right?
Um, landing is the hardest part. I don't know
Who's
what
is that?
song I'm
Billy Ray
thinking
Cyrus?
of.
Who's that?
Um, I don't remember. I don't remember. I was thinking of a song, but I can't place it. And that's not the lyric, but I was
No, I can't imagine any song where
yeah.
landing is the hardest part would be the worst.
It's a good song though. I like it.
God, that is a little earworm that's in my head now. But yeah, it's all about ending shows. I've been doing some shows recently down in Sarasota, doing the Comedy Roulette, which is a freeform show. And if you don't know freeform, all it is anything can happen. Short form, long form, whatever. It's
Scripted?
basically no scripted.
That would be amazing, though. If
That'd be great
someone
if you
in
just
there,
whipped out a
if
script.
halfway through, someone was like, just pulls out a script, is like, "Can me the keys, you motherfucking cocksucker."
Yeah. I mean, it's basically how we've always approached, or at least how I've always approached montage.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to really quick talk about forms real quick.
Yeah.
The difference between what makes a montage and what makes like something, what other people call it or what makes it different. I do think with freeform, the major distinction is that a lot of times they will initiate a short form game,
Yeah.
which I think is something you don't typically see in a lot of long form montages.
Yeah. Well, in college, we used to, every show, we would do a press conference or a boardroom
Town hall.
meeting or a
Yeah.
town hall.
Right, because I
which is
guess too that kind of ties in with like heraldy kind of stuff where you get like these
Yeah.
sort of group games in the middle or things like that.
Yeah, but it's made me think about how we end shows. If we don't have any sort of format to go off of for these freeform shows, how are we ending them?
Right.
And typically, I feel like we're trying to tie them in a nice bow.
Mm.
And just like you mentioned, the Herald, just like the Herald is supposed to sort of do that, I feel like the more you focus on doing that, the less it ties neatly into a bow.
Right. Right.
And I've just had this hard time of like, okay, so obviously there are different formats that exist that have different ways that you end or whatever,
Mhm.
But then when you're given nothing, like what does that look like?
Right. I think the sort of I don't know if this is a good or a helpful answer, but I do think the ending of the show needs to fit whatever the show has been up until that point.
Mhm.
Each show necessitates a different ending, and so it's like I do think when you have something like a Herald, or you have like those three interlining things, and everybody knows in advance they're all kind of melding into something. It makes sense that you end it by sort of finishing it off and sort of
Right.
combining everything together. But if you have done a show that is a bit more jumping around, it is just more loose scenes and stuff, I do think it's going to feel inorganic if you suddenly decide, and you know what, the moral of the story was this. If you did a show that didn't have any moral, it's like I think it's going to feel tacked on if you say, and they all lived happily ever after.
I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say something we don't really talk about a lot, because I think it is almost even frowned on in improv a little bit, is the presence of wit, especially because I think wit is something that's very hard to train, and
Right.
it does rely a lot on just natural instinct, but which is not to say it can't be. I don't know actually how I feel about that. But I think when it comes to, if you have improv players who are just really quick, if they can find that connection, I think everyone actually does like to see that. Like, people enjoy watching things get connected, and if it's there. But if it's not, then yeah, it can feel forced. And I think that's where you see kind of it's almost like you see the cogs going and you're like, it's not really doing it,
Yeah. Well, how do you avoid that?
Well, I would even go a step further and point out that I think this is a problem even outside of improv. Something, I forget where I had heard this mentioned before, just somewhere online, about how a lot of media will deal with puns. Puns being another thing that relies heavily on wit, and also sort of relies on that connecting which really is what we're talking about when we're saying all nice in a bow, right? We're talking about connecting things that belong together in a humorous way. And I think when it comes to puns, there's very much a cheat out that media feels it needs to do, where it makes the pun and it's like, hey, that's a pun, isn't that funny? And it's like, we've kind of have this doubt of our own wits now, where instead, Arrested Development's obviously the classic example where it's a very punny show, but it never apologizes for its punniness. It just does it, and you're totally on for the ride, and you're I mean, I really like that show, but you're along for the ride, you're laughing, you're enjoying it. And I think that's something that, like, just being able to actually connect to these things without like being like having that moment where you look at the audience and you're like, look what I did here, I think
Yeah.
that's also part of it. What makes it organic is just letting it ride instead of
'Cause I mean,
trying to force the audience to look.
I like that because one of the the cringiest ways that things are wrapped up like that very sloppily is when it basically just becomes a list of things. It's like, well, we did
Sure.
this show, we did this, we did
Right.
that, we did that. And now we're all here. And it's like, well, that's not connecting them at all. That's just
Right.
listing them and being like, and now we're here.
A summary.
I think there's
Yeah.
something to be said where a lot of this stuff comes down to that organicness and living in that moment and just really listening and acknowledging what actually happened and not what you wanted to happen. Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we come in with these like patterns and these tropes that we're used to, and we try to like fit them in. I do a lot of like narrative stuff, and I think a lot of times when it comes to like ending the show, we always come down to like these sort of a couple of different pillars of endings where it's like,
Right.
well, I guess we're not so different after all, or really, let's put our differences
Right.
aside, or love was the answer the entire time, and it's like, because we know those are the ways that things end, we try to fit them into places.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes as performers, we each have our own like different patterns of behaviors that we try to bring in sometimes when they're not necessarily fit all the time, or it doesn't really fit with the show that we've done, or what's going on, but we put them in because it's like it's ending time now, so let's go to our like stock 7 or 8 different endings we have.
Yeah.
And that's similar to sort of the giving the wink after the pun, where you're like, this is how it all connects. And it's like the audience usually is going to be smart enough to see that if you actually put it out there, the thing itself, if you actually just say what, rather than talking about the archetype directly. And I say that even though usually actually we do play a lot with archetypes, and we do actually do a lot of stupid stuff where we're talking about them directly. But when you're talking about the ending, when you're talking about, that thing that brings it all together, I think just do the ending. Don't talk about the ending, and then I
Right.
think you will get what you need, because it'll come organically if you're following the rules of improv. And I don't mean like, following yes and to a letter, but if you're doing the if this then what, then the ending you get is the ending that belongs there, rather
Yeah.
than
Right,
and
because
the audience will know that. They'll know it. It's natural. It's just
right,
storytelling.
right, because I don't think archetypes are bad at all, and if the
No,
ending,
not
and
at
if
all.
like,
Yeah.
I think you can easily do like a quote unquote like cliche tropey ending if the show you did supports that ending. I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
it really is just about making sure that the conclusions follow from your arguments. And it's like if you end up trying to conclude with something that you didn't do the supporting work for, it's just going to resonate flatly.
Huh. Maybe
Yeah.
a solution around that is being aware of many different types of stories, and because it seems like we have these wrap ups built into us naturally by what we take in, right?
Right.
Right.
And by spreading it out and knowing how a lot of things end and how they function, because that's how it always is for me. If, for example, we start accidentally doing like a sitcom style show,
Right.
we end it like a sitcom. But if I've never seen a sitcom, I won't know how to play that,
Right.
nor will I know how to end it. So it's like, but then I also know how superhero movies end, despite not really liking them, right? I know how they go and what they end with, and it's we all did it together, huzzah.
Right. And
Um,
I think it goes back to one of those like big improv or really just art notes in general, which is just consume a lot of different
yeah,
types of media and different things so that and you
Wh-
can play with a lot of different things. And I think people sometimes have trouble like I think a lot of like the major blockbustery type stuff people do have like a reference point for.
Yeah.
But I think when you do a show that is more montagey and doesn't really have that narrative focus, what the ending is isn't really as apparent because people don't
That's
really have as much of a frame of reference for like a bunch of vignettes that don't really go anywhere. What is the
Right.
ending to that?
yeah, but that's not how Sam Raimi's Spider-Man ends.
Right. No, he ends. Who am I? I'm I guess now you know a little bit more about me. I'm Spider-Man.
Yeah, but it's not what Matt said. It ends differently than what Matt said.
Right.
said.
Right.
So
It's like if somebody told you, no, that's how it begins. If somebody told you my life was easy, it was a lie.
yeah, it's different than what Matt said.
and then if they said, "Hi, I'm Spider-Man," or "Bye, I'm Spider-Man,"
Bye, I'm Spider-Man.
Which is how it originally started and ended, right?
Hi, I'm Spider-Man. Bye, I'm Spider. Perfect bookends. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it would go. And I feel like another part of it, I mean, you talked about narrative stuff, but I don't think a lot of people understand narrative stuff.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I feel like it's easy to put a narrative on top of something that is disparate because something like Richard Linklater's Slacker or Slackers, I never remember if it's plural or not, where it's like a bunch of stories, back to back end, or Go, another film, but like all of these things that have disparate vignette things that do have an overarching theme.
Right.
Some people don't know that that's a thing because they just watch, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah,
Such a tight narrative arc in the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. That's not the way I would do that. That's my Sheldon. It came out of nowhere. Thank you. Thank you, Academy.
I think that ultimately, and I don't know like a fix. I don't know a fix because I think the problem is going to express itself differently for everyone. But I think one just really good way it was put to me, and I try to use this more in writing than improv, but it absolutely is applicable in improv as well. And in fact, I think is really the backbone to good improv is it's not a series of unrelated events. It's a series, unless you're doing like a true montage where and even then it's really not, because typically one scene will inform the second one subconsciously or however. But regardless, but especially if you're doing narrative, it's not unrelated events. It's not this happened, then this happened. It's if this happened, then that happened. Even if they're happening in two totally different places, that connection exists, even if you're discovering it. And then at the end, you don't want to wait until the last second and then be like, it was connected this way, because then it's like, no, it wasn't. No one's going to buy that,
It was connected.
Regardless of how you present it.
It was all improv. Everyone's like,
they were all brothers. They were all brothers.
We were doing improv the whole time.
And we were brothers.
No, that's a great way to think of it. If we're not searching for the connection, but we understand that it is there,
right?
Then
the audience
there's no pressure
get
to
that
do
you're
it.
brothers,
right?
The audience assumes you're brothers. We've always been brothers.
Well,
they
always assume that we're brothers.
Yeah, just the
right
because we just look so spitting. We're spitting images of each other.
Yeah.
And we're always spitting too.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. It's just like that strong spitting genetics.
Yeah.
Like, what is a spitting image?
Well, it's like
where we're
very close.
We're spitting.
Right.
And
that
it's
is
like,
a thing.
Oh, that looks a lot like a different.
It's like he's the spitting image of his dad or something. People would say.
No, I know. I'm asking why.
Because if you used to be able to like spit on pictures, and that would tell if it was like a real picture or a photocopy. Because like the human spit dissolves the thing that uses in photo booths.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, because if you ate a photo back in the day and chewed it up for a little while,
you would know if
the pulp would be a little different, so you'd spit it out.
Yeah,
instead of the fake photos that existed back then, whatever those are. You want to make sure it's not a fake.
Yeah, when you ate those fake images back then, they dissolved and you swallowed them.
And then you could be like, "Oh, this isn't a real photograph. This is a fake photo."
They'd be like, "Yeah, they had photo authenticators walking around just eating photos." And then It's like if it's a witch, the witch drowns. But if
Yeah.
the
The 90s were a
the
wild
new burner,
time.
yeah, you eat the photo, and if it goes down easy, it was fake. But
Sure.
if you crumple it up and spit it out,
Yeah, have
then
you ever brought like
it's
a
real.
disposable camera to like a Costco or something and dropped it in one of those
I do.
boxes? Below that is just a guy eating nibbling on
Wait, but
pictures.
what? And then what? Oh, when you bring it to Costco to get developed?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny
Oh.
because every picture
Will he not
you
develop
get,
the fake photos?
no.
They won't
Every
develop the
picture
fake
you
ones.
get, every picture that you've gotten, the 5x7, 4x6, whatever, after you've got them developed, aren't the originals. Someone took photos of what
Right.
your photos were taken of
Right.
because they were all destroyed.
Right.
So any
Right, of
picture that you
course.
have of yourself is not actually you.
Yeah,
That
the
is-
originals are all sent to the National Archive to just be to in DC.
How much
Yeah.
does that pay?
I'm sorry?
Authenticating photos.
Oh,
They're
it's like
working
minimum
on it.
wage, I think.
Yeah, they're working on it right now. They're
Oh,
trying to
shoot.
get 18, but we're still at, the national average,
We're?
which I think is, yeah, I've been eating photos for a while now. It's my
Are
second
you union?
job. No, I'm not.
Okay,
But
wow.
You have to pay a lot
I'm
of
working
dues
up
to get into the
yeah,
union.
I'm working up to it. You need a
Hey,
certain number of
those
points.
dues go to something. What is this?
I'm not anti-union. I'm not busting unions, okay? Yes, I don't like the Writers Guild.
A strong narrative arc in our show. If you watch our show, there is a narrative, which is that Matt is anti-union,
Yeah, I'm not anti. I'm just anti
see how it's
some
all
of these
connected.
anti the
unions.
WGA.
Yeah, just the WGA and
Wait, what's the
IATSE.
photo?
IATSE. Who's
Which-
against IATSE?
What's the photo eating union called?
The PGA, but unrelated to the one for golf.
Sure, the golf.
Yeah. Well,
Wait, Christian, you don't work in the photo authentication industry, do you?
No, not anymore.
Okay. Okay.
I got out. Took a long
Good for
time.
you.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
kind of
anyway,
inspirational to see one of us make it.
I hope that was a masterclass in ending an episode or ending a thing, because this is, in fact, that end that I'm referring to.
So with that in mind,
I guess it was the journey.
Yeah,
The
I'd say it
friends
was
we
a
made along the
journey.
way.
I'd say it was a journey.
yeah.
What would
There
you?
was the
What's
friends?
the moral that you would go through?
I mean, I think if we all think about it, the end is also the beginning, and the beginning is the end. From ashes, dust to dust. We are all dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind.
And
Oh,
I guess
thought
some
that was the
Spider-Man.
prayer.
It started.
All right,
that
bye,
way.
Spider-Man.
Bye,
I'm Spider-Man.
Spideys.
If
Bye,
someone
Spideys.
told you my life was easy, somebody lied.
Hi, I'm Christian Torres from Walrus. If you're interested in supporting this show, the best thing that you can do is rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure to check out walrus.com, that's WALLARES, for a full list of our socials, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Stay tuned for news about any live shows that we may have, and new episodes of Little Bits and Pieces come out every Thursday wherever you get your podcasts.
The show you've just listened to is a part of the Podfix Network. To listen to other shows on the network, head over to podfixnetwork.com. Follow on Twitter @Podfix and join the Podfix Nation at facebook.com/Podfix.